10:04 on TSN 690. It is Game Points Nightly, a special primetime 4-day presentation Monday through Thursday of this week. I'm Matthew Ross. He's Mo Khan, and that gentleman over there, you can't see him, but I swear he's here. Stefano Micella is in studio as well, and Marco Polo on the board, the technical producer. We'll chat momentarily, hopefully, with Joe Yerdon, if he's not too exhausted from all of the activity today on Free Agent Frenzy Day. More tweets and Facebook postings coming in on who should be the captain of the Habs. From Rocket Roach on Twitter, any combination of Subban, Weaver, Prust, Markov, Pleck, and give them all A's. From Kerry Ashton, PK has my vote also. He will be the stud on this team for years to come.
Start the trend, my friend. Subban for captain. Hashtag that, please.
No, I'm not doing that. You can do that if you
I am
want.
doing that.
Are you really?
Yes.
Really?
Tomorrow I will continue the campaign trail through southern Quebec into the eastern townships. Subban for captain.
All right, Mo. You do that. 10:06 here on TSN 690. Time to talk a little hockey. It's probably the most hockey we've spoken about on this program in months. We like to diversify, talk some CFL, NFL, MLB, all the other sports, NBA, etc. But a lot of hockey talk tonight, and rightfully so based on all of the activity today. Our next guest is a contributor to both prohockeytalk.nbcsports.com as well as NHL.com. You can follow him on twitter.com/Joe Yerdon, PhD. He is the man with the most tweets ever on Twitter. It's Joe Yerdon. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Doing good. I'm trying to track down that record, let me tell you.
Yeah, and now the thumbs, are they exhausted today?
All the fingers getting a workout today with all the writing I did.
Yeah.
Doing with all the stories breaking this afternoon with all the signings, and then getting to write about a big day for the Buffalo Sabres as well.
Yeah, you cover them closely, and it seems like they spend a whack load of money, Joe. That's they need to get to that floor of the cap, right? So they just let's throw an extra $1 here. Seemed like they spent a lot of money.
Yeah, you know what, they did, and last I looked at Capgeek, they're at the floor. They've succeeded. They've climbed out of peril for not being able to field a team next season. So they're all set. But I tell you what, the moves they made today they're interesting. Usually we've gotten used to the Sabres getting their moves panned. All you have to do is go back a few years with Ehrhoff and Leno being signed to monstrous deals. But, today they kept it very reasonable. The only one you might be able to haggle with a little bit is giving 3 years to Brian Gionta. But I would say with everybody they acquired today, it was a sound day. It was a great day for the foundation for a team that's going to have a lot of young guys next year and will probably do a little bit better than the 55 points they had this past season.
Yeah, one more thing on the Sabres. It felt like they were going to go young, and now they're bringing in all these veterans as well, right? They're paying Gionta, $100 million to score 4 goals next year, and Georges is brought in as well. So a little bit of a Habs flavor. Did they spend it wisely in your opinion?
I think they did. People are going to, like I said, people are going to get hung up on the Gionta deal, given a 35-year-old guy $4 million a year for 3 years, and I get that. I mean, he hasn't been the player he used to be. I get that's fine, but I think part of what they're paying him to do is to help bring guys up like Zemgus Girgensons and Sam Reinhart and whoever they end up drafting in the first round next year and the year after that. It's one of those things that's going to be it's part of their process, and they look at Gionta as being a guy who's going to be that prototypical great leader in the locker room, and Josh Georges, it's the same thing on the blue line. Everybody should know about their young blue liners that are coming up or already there. I mean, Tyler Myers is still 23 or 24 years old, and you add Mark Patrick, Rasmus Ristolainen, Nikita Zadorov, and suddenly things are very green back there. And Georges at 29 years old is now their oldest defenseman, so he's coming in. He's got to be a leader, and they're hoping that his style of play rubs off on everyone.
Joe, 2 questions here. What do you think about the Capitals spending so much money on their back end, their defense, and do you think Mike Green will still be part of the Capitals come this fall?
Well, I'm not sure about Green. they've got a lot of money invested back there, and the contract I have the biggest issue with is the Orpik deal. I think with the amount of miles and the hard miles he's got on his body, and the fact that he's 33 years old, giving him a 5-year deal worth that much money is bonkers to me. But maybe it's one of those things where the Caps saw enough of him over the years where they're just like, enough already with this guy. Let's just bring him in here and see what happens. For the Caps, defense was their biggest problem, and people are going to hammer on that Niskanen deal, and probably rightfully so. But I think that may end up working out a little bit better in the long run, just because he's younger and he looks like he's rounded into form here the last couple of years. So, but overall, that's bananas money to me. For so many years, people said the Caps got to help their D. Well, they went out and did it today, but I wonder how long Green's going to stick around there. And if Niskanen coming along was the thing that did him in.
So we talked about some big contracts on that side. My stupid contract of the day, by far, is with a team that has a long history, in at least the last few years anyway, of giving stupid contracts. That would be 5 years and $4 million a year to Benoit Pouliot. What were the Oilers thinking? I mean, Joe, when you saw that, did you kind of go, what?
It was a bit of a head scratcher. I'll say that. I mean, the history on him is something else. Getting burned out in Montreal, getting burned out in Minnesota. Everything along the way. Boston, you name it, Tampa Bay, everywhere. And
we watched him take a bad penalty last year in the playoffs with the Rangers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive zone penalties have always been a thing for him. But I tell you what, the analytics folks got their win on this one, because he's a guy who drives possession. He's a guy who's going to make sure you have the puck. And, as we learned from the Kings, as long as you got the puck, the other team doesn't. And sometimes that's the best defense. And, Pouliot played very well with his line in New York. That trio was outstanding. But I really wonder how this is going to work in Edmonton. There's no doubt that there's skilled forwards in Edmonton, and that some of that same magic can happen there. But I think that Pouliot's got such a long history of just not rising to the occasion that you have to wonder what in the world brought that, brings out a 5-year deal for that. I know he wanted long term. I know he wanted to get paid after a great season, but boy, oh boy, Edmonton, the analytics stuff pays off. Believe me, it's good information. But geez, sometimes there's a little bit more that goes beyond that with some players, and I wonder if Pouliot's that type.
Joe, when you look at the Vancouver Canucks, obviously they're in rebuild mode, but did you scratch your head with the fact they signed Ryan Miller to that 3-year deal?
I don't mind that deal for him, because if they were going to go into the season with Eddie Lack and and Jacob Markstrom, that was not going to work. Like that, the amount of the lack of faith John Tortorella had in Markstrom last season, never starting him once, from the moment they traded the Longo. To me that, it shows that, they don't have that faith in him. And, Rolly Melanson's going to have his hands full there as the goaltending coach, because we saw how Miller kind of got messed with in St. Louis, where, they tried telling him to play it a different way, and it didn't pan out. And it didn't pan out at all for the Blues. So if he gets on the same page with Rolly there on goaltending and style, I think that could work out fine. But, the West is so tough. The West is so hard that, everybody's loaded up now. And Vancouver absolutely needed a goalie to help out there. I know they love Eddie Lack, but you know what? Ryan Miller for 3 years, he'll help him out.
Joe, obviously the St. Louis Blues felt some pressure because of the disappointing first-round playoff exits they've had over the last couple of years. They get Paul Stastny today, paying $7 million a year for the next 4 years. Is he a big piece for them to add, for them to go further, or do you think this is just going to wind up being one of those bad contracts for them?
I think this is going to be a big help for him. They paid big for him. $7 million a year is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. But I think, given the moves that Dallas made, acquiring Jason Spezza, and Chicago having Jonathan Taves, everything else going on in that division, they needed a center who could bring it for him. And Stastny's that type. I think he was a guy who was often underappreciated in Colorado for what he did. And I think that he's somebody that's going to pay off in the long run for him. Whether or not he's the missing piece for them to get to the Stanley Cup, I don't know. But I think they're a lot better down the middle with him now because he plays great offensively, plays great defensively too, and a little bit more adept at center than David Backes is. Backes does a great job, but I think Stastny is a guy who's going to really help out.
Chatting with Joe Yerdon from prohockeytalk.nbcsports.com. Joe, one guy who hasn't been signed as of yet, we're told that he'll make a decision tomorrow. He's narrowed it down to a few teams. Probably had to wait until a guy like a Ginla signs somewhere. Is Radim Verbata, 33 years old. He's had some pretty good years in the NHL. Obviously, a team like Boston would be targeting him based on the fact that they just lost a Ginla. We're told Montreal is still in the mix. I think the Coyotes alive as well. Your thoughts on where you think he could go and his value?
You know, I was looking at him the other day, and he's been pretty steady in his Coyotes career. You know, he's a guy's going to get you 20 to 30 goals a year. He's going to play pretty solid on the right wing. He's a perfect number 2 right wing. And then I thought, well, geez, everybody's going to come running after this guy. And then I saw that he's 33, and it blew me away. Now, 33 is not old, believe me. But he plays the kind of game where you think he might be like 28, 29, and I wonder if I think back to the year that he spent in Tampa Bay, and granted he was hurt. You know, it was a few years back, but he just did not succeed there. And I wonder if just maybe Dave Tippett has the magic code to make him go and make him work right. But you know, I think if you take all that stuff aside, he's a guy who would work out ideal in Boston. He's a guy who would work great in Montreal. He will work great in Vancouver. Any of these teams that were in on Ginla before that might need some help on the right side, I think he's an absolute guy you have to chase. And I think for what he's worth, if you're going 2 or 3 years with him, perfect. You know, it's the kind of offer you got to throw at him. But I wonder if, you know, maybe now that Ginla's settled and his deal's so big that, you know, maybe the prices have gone up on him.
He is Joe Yerdon. The website is prohockeytalk.nbcsports.com. As he mentioned, covers the Sabres as well, NHL.com. But also, make sure you follow him on Twitter if you are on Twitter. Joe Yerdon, YERDONPHT. A great follow. Joe, thanks so much.
Hey, you got it, Matthew. Thanks a lot.
All right, there you go. That's Joe Yerdon, another one of our weary hockey guests. We're going to bring one back. At this point, I don't even know if he's still standing. Dave Pagnotta, we had him at 7:30. We're bringing him back at 10:30 just to find out if there are other updates. He is at his desk. He's been working the phones the last few hours to find out if there is indeed any movement on any of these free agents that have not signed as of yet, and also trades as well. No joke, Dave Pagnotta texted me a couple of hours ago after he was on this program, and he said, "Did I swear on air?" He couldn't even remember our conversation. It's been such a long 24 hours for Dave. So he's coming up at about 10:33 or so. So stay tuned for that. Up next here on TSN 690, we're going to talk some NBA free agency, which began today. Players cannot sign for a few more days, but the free agency courting period did begin today. We'll talk about that next.